Teaching and learning with Mr. Miller. Hello, welcome to another episode of Teaching and Learning with Mr. Miller. Today we're going to be carrying on from the last episode where we arranged a sequence. We built this sequence with video and audio. Today we're looking at colour correction and colour grading, making some of this footage look a little bit better than it did before. As you can see, we've got our sequence. I'm just going to scrub through by grabbing my playhead and just seeing what we've got. As you can see, it takes a little bit while to load each piece of footage. The reason for that is because it's not rendered yet. You can see this yellow bar here. This means that it's not rendered. If it's red, it means that it needs rendering. If it's yellow, it means it doesn't need rendering, but it will play a little bit slowly. And if it's green, it means it's rendered. The way to render, by the way, is to go to Sequence and then Render into Out. I'm not really going to do that because it's going to take quite a long time, as you can see. In fact, actually, maybe it's not going to take too long to do. But what it will do is it will turn that yellow bar green, which means anything green should play a little bit better. I'm going to cancel that because we don't really need it. It's done that first bit though, which was the title, which shouldn't take long to render. And that plays perfectly fine. But the rest of it's probably going to be a little bit slow. But I don't need to render it until the very end. And then even then, I may not need to render it because I can see exactly what it's going to be. Now what I am going to do is I'm just going to mute the audio. I've got mute there. I've also got solo if I want to play that track and only that track. I've only got one track of audio anyway. But I'm going to mute it just so it doesn't get in the way of this video. And what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and colour correct some of this footage. I'm going to work each clip individually, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the clip, and then if you can see, we go to our effects control. We've got all the different things that we can change there at the moment. At the moment, we've got time remapping, which hasn't been turned on. As you can see, it's off. We've got opacity. That means how see-through it is. If I turn it down, it makes it more black because there's only black underneath it. And we've also got motion, which is going to be things like position, scale, and all the rest of it. Rotation, by the way, comes in quite handy. A lot of the time, people film their footage just slightly off. So if you change it by just like 1%, that works. That usually fixes it. Got to zoom in as well, obviously, change the scale, but we don't need to do that at the moment. Now, what I'm going to do to color correct this is I'm going to, having my first clip selected, I'm going to go to the top tab and I'm going to go to color. Now we've been working in editing all the way up till now, which has been perfectly fine. Didn't really need to do anything differently. But now I'm going to use color. Now if I do that, it's going to change my layout slightly. It looks basically the same with the exception of I've now got my Lumetri color here on the right. And this is going to give me some options now to change it. Now my secret, or my tip I should say, it's not really a secret, my tip for color correction is keep it simple, okay? Don't try and make it look really fancy because otherwise what's going to happen is it's just, when you do finally export it, it's just going to be so over-processed. It's just actually going to look a little bit unusual. Not to mention the footage that I've got here, this looks like relatively professional footage. It's very high quality, so me changing it any more than what it is only going to make it look a little bit more unusual. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the very top there. So you can click on these different things here and it's going to open. I'm going to just start with basic correction. I actually do have some options there, but I'm not going to use those. I'm just going to go for basic correction. Now, my recommendation would be if you don't know what any of these do, play around with them and just get ready to press Command Z to undo it. Now, we have got an LUT there, or what we call a LUT. That's a lookup table, and basically what it means is it's a preset. Someone's made these already for some famous cameras. We've got the Arri Alexa there, which is an incredibly expensive camera, which doesn't have much processing in it to go with because they're expecting to do that afterwards. We've got things like the Phantom. If I remember rightly, Phantom is what the slow-mo guys use. It's that slow-mo camera. We're not going to use a LUT, but I'll show you what it would do. It would just change it based upon what they would say would work best for that camera. Now, we don't need that, so I'm just going to undo it. But you can see already what's going to happen. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just change the temperature slightly and show you what that does. Now, color temperature refers to almost like the white balance, and we've got the white balance selector there. You could just click on the eye droplet tool and then use it on the white if you wanted to. I'm not going to do that. But what we can do is we can just make it cooler or we can make it warmer. Now, to be honest, I actually think that this looks perfect at 0, okay? Maybe I'll pump it up a little bit just to make it a little bit warmer. There we go. Let's make it 10, okay? So that's what I'm going to try and do there, make it 10. I've also got the tint, which is almost like the counterbalance. So if you're going to change the temperature, you're probably going to want to change the tint or to green or to magenta, but again, I'm going to leave that one. Now I'm just going to keep my footage just like that, okay? So the second I made any changes over here, you can see that actually it's done that on my effects control. So if I want to undo anything I've done, I can just click there and I can just press delete on my keyboard and it will just take it back to its original position. Or what I could have done is I could have just pressed FX off. And you can see the changes I've done. Very minimal at the moment. Now with tone, I can explain what these things do very quickly. Do apologise if I'm rushing through this one. But exposure means brightness. It technically doesn't mean brightness. Brightness and exposure are different. Brightness is how bright the image is, how light or dark it is. Exposure refers to how strong the light source is. But for the sake of argument, it's going to, turning it up is going to make it brighter, turning it down is going to make it darker. Contrast is the difference between blacks and whites. And highlights and shadows, whites and blacks, is going to refer to how strong the blacks and whites are. Play around with them, see what sort of thing you can create. To be honest though, I actually think that just clicking auto is probably a good place to start. Now you can see that when I did that and clicked auto, very little changed. Again, probably because this footage has actually been color corrected, so it didn't need much. But I'm just going to click on auto and I'm going to let the computer decide for me. Because it looks like this camera was actually set up correctly when they filmed the footage, chances are I don't need to do much color correction. So I'm not going to do much. Saturation refers to how much color is in it. If I completely desaturate it, I've made it black and white. If I go to above 100, well, yeah. Actually, it looks quite nice, but again, a bit too much. Don't really need that. And then I'm going to close up the basic correction. We've got some creative stuff there as well if you wanted to make it look a bit creative. If you want to make it look a bit more old-fashioned, we can give it some faded film kind of look if you wanted to. You could sharpen it, which, yeah, you can see you can see what it's doing there. It's finding the individual details and it's making each individual detail sharper. Vibrance and saturation again. Vibrance is very similar to saturation. It's going to do something very similar. Again, they are different but very similar. But again, I'm not going to change any of these. Okay, I'm happy with all of these. Oh, you actually have got a drop-down menu there as well if you wanted to as well. You can make it look like what should we go for? We've got okay, right. Let's go for like an old Kodak thing or something like that. There you go. That looks quite nice, but we're not going to do that. Curves refers to if you're on white, refers to the blacks and the whites, how light and dark it is. You could do a classic S curve. That's what we usually do, raises contrast. Again, not going to change that, don't need to. You've also got the reds, greens and blues. This is very bluey greeny, so I could kind of like change that individually if I wanted to. Again, looks quite nice. Play around with it, see what sort of thing you create. Don't feel like you have to. We've got the color wheels, which is changing the individual color of the shadows, the highlights and anything in the middle there. So if I want to make the dark bits really blue, I could click there. If I wanted to make the light bits really green, I could do that. And my midtones, I could make magenta, and that looks awful. If you don't know what you're doing, play around with it, but don't feel like you have to. Okay. Now, one of these things that I do like playing around with is the HSL secondary, actually, where we can change some of the individual colors. Now, I don't feel like I really need to do that much here because the color is actually perfect to begin with. But you can change some of these individual things as much as you need, to. So you can change well, it's going to make it go a bit crazy while it does that. But you can change those if you need to. I'm going to leave that again because the footage looks perfectly fine. And the last thing we can do is we can add a vignette. Now, what I usually do is I usually put a vignette of just like -2 or -0.2. If you go down to actually -2 doesn't look too bad. Let's go there. And what that does is that just creates kind of like an effect on it that kind of almost like an ellipsis that centers it. But I'm not going to do that for now because I'm going to do that at the very end. So what I've done now is I have individually color corrected that first clip. I've done very little, but that's a good thing. Okay, it did look like that, and now it looks like that. Very simple. But that's because this footage looks fantastic. Now what I can do is I can do that individually to each individual clip. So I could do it to this one now, which looks very warm. Now, as you can see, when I've clicked on that clip, I've lost the Lumetri color. If I click back on that one, I've got Lumetri color because I've got that one selected, even though my playhead's not over it. And with this one, I haven't got anything. If I wanted to, my two clips are very similar. I could just click on this, Command C, which is copy, go onto this, and then press Command V, and look, and it will paste it over it. So I don't have to do in each individual one. That actually works quite well. But I'm just going to go again, and I'm just going to see what I can do. I'm going to click on Auto. Okay, and that's actually changed it quite a lot, you know, even lowered the exposure. Now, that actually looks a bit too bright, so I'm going to go -10 there. A bit too warm, sorry. Because this one already looks quite warm, and this one looks quite cold. So now, hopefully, these are going to match up a little bit more. Okay, and I'm happy with that. And I'm going to do that to each individual clip. Now, you can work quite quickly, actually, by just Command V, basic correction. I'm going to click on Auto. Chances are the computer's going to know what to do because this is high-quality footage. Again, done very little there. Let's go there and let's go... Well, that looks a bit too warm now, so I'm going to do -10 on that one. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to get to that last clip. Now, this last clip is the one that was filmed portrait instead of horizontally, so looked a little bit off, and that isn't fantastic footage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from the beginning again, and I'm going to try and make it look like it did in the other ones. So if I click Auto now, it's probably going to pump that exposure up. Yeah, 2. Wow, okay. Now that doesn't look too bad, actually. So I'm just going to have a bit of my coffee. That doesn't look too bad. It definitely looks as bright as I kind of want it to, but it definitely doesn't look like that, does it? I really do need to do a little bit more to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a bit warmer to begin with. Let's just see what 10 does. Okay, let's go with 20. Maybe let's try and experiment by, because it looks very blue, I could go greeny, that makes it look a little bit colder. I could just try and give it a bit of magenta. Okay. So it did look like that, now it looks like that. Looks a bit better. Not fantastic, but a bit better. You know, I might just keep trying to make it really warm. Yeah, okay, I'm happy with that. We're not going to be able to do too much with it. Now, that looks incredibly saturated. I mean, look at the colours there. You know, look at the difference between the red, for the sake of argument, we'll call that red, reddy orange. And look at the difference between the green and the blue. Like, that's just such a strong contrast there. I'm willing to bet that the saturation has been pumped up. So let's see what we can get here. Okay, maybe a bit too much there. Let's go with 150, I guess. Okay, I'm a lot happy with that. So it did look like that, and now it looks like that. I think we're doing. I think that's all right. I'm going to leave that there. Let's go to creative and see what I can do. Now we can go for intensity, see what that does. Go down to 0, see what it does. Then go to 100, see what it does. Well, it doesn't do too much, or maybe that's because it's the creative look. Sorry, that it's changing the intensity for, isn't it? Of course it is. So let's just go with 0. There we go, because we're not going to do anything with that. Do I want to sharpen it? Don't think so. Maybe I can pump the saturation up a little bit more there. Maybe the vibrance up a bit. Okay, so it did look like that. Now I've pumped it like that. Okay, now this is starting to look a little bit... Actually, I think it's starting to look a little bit over the top. So let's see what we can do. Let's go with curves. I don't think I need to change the brightness, and that's what the white does. Maybe I need to change that blue a little bit. And let's try and pump the highlights a little bit. We'll get rid of the darks. Maybe I could have done it the other way around. I could have done a backwards S. Okay, I'm going to leave that one, I think. We can go for the color wheels as well. You can see you can change the blue. You can make the blue a little bit darker as you need to. A little bit more green. You know what, I'm going to leave those. We can change those individual colors, but I'm going to leave that, and then the vignette I'm going to leave as well. Okay, so I don't think I've done a perfect job with that, but I think in the time that I've had, I've done a little bit of a change there, okay? I think that footage definitely looks a bit better there. You know, it did look like that, and now it looks like that, okay? Now that's color correction, okay? So I've corrected that. So I'm going to go back to editing. I'm going to save that, and now I've color corrected my footage, okay? By changing each individual clip. That's color correction. Sorry, that's just a bit more of my coffee. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do color grading. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to color grade the entire sequence. Now you don't have to do the entire sequence, you can just do sections. But as you can see, we've got these video 2 and video 3. Now anything we put on above that is going to hide this. So for example, if I grab another bit of footage, if I grab that first bit, okay, and I put it over this, turn the eye to show what's showing. So what that means is this one's now hidden, okay? But if I click the eye on, it's going to show whatever's on top, okay? Now you can't see through that. But what we can do is we can put things on top of there that are somewhat see-through, somewhat opaque. So we're going to go to, make sure you've got this selected here. I don't think it works if you've got this selected. No, it doesn't, okay? So select your assets section and go to File, New, and Adjustment Layer. Where's that? I missed it, there we go. Now this is going to be a layer that we're going to put over everything, and any adjustments we make on this layer is going to adjust everything below, okay? Now this sometimes makes it a little bit easier. Just so you know, it has worked out what my sequence is, so chances are you're going to want to click just OK there. And then I'm going to put that into my miscellaneous folder. Keep everything clean, you know, just makes it easy. In fact, I'll chuck my sequence in there as well, just to keep it clean. And I'll put that adjustment layer over the top, and I'm just going to stretch it over. There we go. In fact, I'm going to put it above one. Little tip, by the way, if you want to create a fourth layer, you just drag that up, and it'll just create a fourth one for you there. Okay, but I'm going to keep it on layer 3, just in case I did want to put anything here on layer 2. You know, I don't know, maybe I want to put some more titles there if I needed to. And now what I'm going to do is anything that I change to this adjustment layer is going to change to the thing below. Now, because I've color corrected each individual clip, hopefully any changes I make to one clip should look good on all the others, but we can find out. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on the adjustment layer, and I'm going to go back to color, and I'm going to work upwards now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a vignette, okay, which is what I told you about earlier. Now I like the idea of having a vignette at -2, okay, because I like the idea of having that black outline. That might be a bit too strong actually. Let's go for -1. The idea with the vignette is people shouldn't even notice it's on. You know, that's what it does look like, that's what it did look like, and that's what it looks like now. So you can see the differences between. But if I was to show that, the idea is people wouldn't even be able to see there's a vignette on it, but you kind of can. Now, that is on every single clip now. Taking a little bit while now because we've overloaded it with stuff. Let's save it before it crashes. This is where you're going to need a little bit of RAM to be doing this. My computer's currently working on 8. Which is enough, but I have had to close down a lot of other programs. Keep that in mind, by the way, if you're editing. If your computer has got, you know, 8 or even less, you're going to want to close down absolutely everything while you're doing that. But I think that works well. I could do some other things as well, like I could change the color temperature of everything if I needed to. You know, if I make it really cold, it's going to change it to every single clip that I've got on there, which I do not want to do, so I'm going to change that back to 0. There we go. And there we go, and that's me doing color grading. Now again, I can do other things as well. I could use one of these LUTs if I wanted to. You know, I could put that on it, and that's going to change it for every single clip. But it depends, do you want to do that for every single clip? You know, it looks a little bit overloaded there. Same with creative there, you know, you could go for one of these looks. Let's go for monochrome, that means black and white, by the way. You know, so you could desaturate the entire thing. You could also... I do love some of these Kodak things. Oh, see, that looks quite nice. Yeah, I'm going to keep that on it as well, okay? That makes it just look a little bit more subtle. Right, and there we go. I'm going to go back to editing and save that. Now, anything that you change to that adjustment layer is going to be changed below. Now, you could add as many adjustment layers as you wanted to, really, just to kind of like, you know, decide what you're going to do. You could even shorten it and just have it for those clips. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some video effects as well. Now most of these aren't very good. You can see you've got things like color correct there, but you're better off just using the Lumetri color panel at the top. But there are some things here that are quite good. Stylize, you know, you've got to be careful with this sort of stuff like Mosier. I don't know if you know, do you really want to do that? You know, not perfect maybe, but you can see it goes just there, so you can kind of. There we go. So if you wanted to blur out a certain clip, you could do that in a certain section. Emboss, let's see what this does. You can just play around with these things and see what it does. Yeah, no. But see what sort of things you get. Some of these things do work quite well. I mean, we've got blur and sharpen there. If you wanted to sharpen the entire thing, you can go there. If you put it on there and you're thinking, nothing's changed, it might be because you need to go to the effects control, okay? If you've lost that, by the way, remember, you can go to Window, Effects Control, or, Workspaces and just reset back to normal as well. But, let's turn that up to 100, and it sharpens the entire thing. Now, remember, I put that on my adjustment layer, so it's not just going to sharpen that first clip, it's going to sharpen everything. I do not want to do that. But you can see that you can add things onto there as well. Now, you can download presets. There's this guy called Jarl. He's released these many years ago. He's up to 4.0 now, as you can see. And he's got some quite fun things on there as well. He's got he had the Jarl's looks. These are very famous now, where he's created his own set of looks, day for night. So we could make this look like it's nighttime if you wanted to. Sometimes it works perfectly. That actually works really well. Sometimes it does not work. Give it a go. You could have sepia, depending on how you want to set. That actually works quite nicely. Make it look like an old film, but we don't want to do that. If you want to know how to download these presets, by the way, Google Jarl's presets. You can see how it's spelled there, and then what you do is you right-click and you go to import presets, and you just import them like that. He's got this nice Deadpool one as well, which is where you can just drag it on, and it makes the whole thing kind of shaky, which is quite fun. So if you're ever thinking like, oh, I want to use handheld camera, yeah, film it with a tripod, okay. And then what you want to do is you want to put the shaky camera on afterwards. Did that even go on, did it? Oh yeah, there we go, it's up there as well. Okay, so I can just delete that. Actually, you can't delete it, can you? Because it's... If I press Command Z, there we go, turn it off. So he's got loads of nice things there as well. You've got some great stuff like, where is he got the anonymous one on there as well? Anonymizer, that's quite fun. Don't know if I actually clicked that on there. There we go. So yeah, it's kind of like the Mosaic, but it actually you can move around this anonymizer thing there. That's quite fun. So you can experiment, you can play around. When you've got that done, well done, you're almost finished, and then you just need to export it. That's what I'm going to be showing you in the next video, how to export your sequence ready for different types of upload, depending on what you're going to be doing. Right, before I forget, let's turn that off because we're going to need that for next time. Right, thanks so much, ladies and gents. See you in the next video.